Hey there, everyone. It's me, Samuel Broden, and welcome to a brand new season of Honoring Childhood, the podcast, where we have candid and casual conversations on childhood. I am just so excited about all the amazing guests and conversations we're going to be having this season, and I can't wait for you to join us. So, what are you waiting for? Come on, let's go.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Honoring Childhood, the podcast, where we have candid and casual conversations on childhood. So glad that you could join us this week. I'm really excited about the conversation and the guests that I have today. Today, we're going to be talking with Dr. Heather Von Bank. I am super excited about having this conversation. She is a professor in the Department of Family Consumer Science at Minnesota State University, Mankato, and teaches courses in the area of child development and family studies. In 2013, she co-authored her first book, The Power of Playful Learning, the Green Edition, and in 2022 presented at the TEDx conference at MNSU. She has been promoting the power of play at local, regional, national, and international conferences. Welcome to the podcast, Heather. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Samuel. It is awesome to be chatting with you. I'm happy to be.
Yes. Yes, I'm definitely so excited. So I kind of read the little official about you, but if you
Yeah.
just want to tell us just kind of your journey in
Yeah.
this field and anything else you'd like us to know about you.
Yeah. Well, I think with any sort of journey through academia, it's always about mentorship and who your
Mm.
mentors are. I was a grad student out at University of Wisconsin-Madison and getting a lot of amazing opportunities to do research and to do teaching. And I worked with a instructor, Joyce Hemphill. She taught a class on the benefits of play in child development,
Mm.
and I got to know her, and I got to help her. Well, she developed the class, but I got to help her with one part of the class, which was a play day at the Dane
Mm.
County Fair. And it was a free event for children, for families, and her students created this play day. So I loved that time there. But play really wasn't part of my graduate
Mm. Hmm.
schooling. My background is actually in adolescent development, so I have
Oh,
a passion for that as well. But
yes.
when I got my job at Minnesota State Mankato, that passion and that newness of learning more about play and development and how that's tied into lifespan, right? That's I
Hmm.
teach lifespan development, right? That just became a really big part of my identity. And so when I had a chance to create a class, I created my own class on play and child development. And so I've been teaching that for 16 years at MSU. And each year I get a new group of students who
Hmm.
want to go into working with children and families and in lots of different backgrounds. And I get to do really ridiculously fun, silly things with 22-year-olds, and they look at me like I have antlers on my head. Like they're not always, uh, they're surprised, we'll say that. That's been my journey in the classroom, extending into the community. We do the play days also in the community, and that's been so helpful to help me get connected to people, to resources, to opportunities. And that's really where my advocacy and research has come in more recently into recess and
Mm.
for young kiddos and for middle school age kiddos. So I'm a parent of two kiddos, so as they get older, I tend to sort of my research lens has been kind of shifting as they're also aging through school,
Mm. Hmm.
and that allows me to think differently about what their play looks like and how that looks differently for anybody across the lifespan.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that, and I had the honor of coming into your class a few weeks ago and having a really great discussion, and so that was just great, and just being able to talk to people about this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and especially folks who are starting to get into the field or wanting to get into the field. I love kind of just being able to start them off with like these ideas, right, that maybe took us a little bit longer to get to. So that was definitely a great experience for me. It was the first time I ever had done anything like that, going into a college class and talking or anything like that. And so it was very exciting, and I really enjoyed it. Um, but I'm excited to talk to you today because you mentioned it a little bit. The idea of this adolescent development, and
Mm.
it through our conversations, just this idea of what play kind of looks like throughout the years, right? I feel like so often we focus on play being a child's thing, right? It's for children to do. And even, ourselves, right? We don't think of play as something that we should be doing or can be doing, or what that would even look like. So I'm really excited to dive into a different
Mhm.
lens of play than I'm used to even talking about. And so I'm really just kind of excited to dig a little bit deeper into, like, you know, how play looks through, childhood, yes, but how
Mhm.
does it look as we continue to grow as people? Where is there missing pieces of that as we get older? Like we said, it's
Mhm.
it's not really something that we think about a lot.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, I'm just excited to kind of hear what your thoughts are on that, what kind of led you to wanting to learn more about the further years of life, and
Mhm.
yeah, what play means and looks like to you as we
Mhm.
age.
Yeah. I used to be the person that would say, I don't, well, I say I'm not really good at like arts and crafts. Like,
Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
not like, that's not like my bag. I don't really have a hobby. And I used to, because I tried all the hobbies.
Yeah.
Like, I did gardening, I did crocheting, I did stamping back in the
Yes, oh
day.
yeah.
I did all those sorts of things. And none of that was like, I liked learning about the thing,
Hmm.
but I didn't want to like create or produce those things.
Yeah.
So I guess in teaching the class that I do and talking with young adults who do have as adults we have a narrow prescription of what play is or what it
Hmm.
isn't.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I tell people that my hobby is this. It's talking with my friends
Yes.
over a cup of coffee, and it's getting together and talking about the podcasts we're listening to and the books we're
Hmm.
listening to, and going to a festival downtown. Like that's my play.
Hmm.
And once I kind of open that up to the college students to let them define their own perception of play,
Hmm.
then it can kind of it gives them the permission to play.
Hmm.
Because oftentimes we don't give ourselves that permission.
Hmm.
And if your college professor is making you play, then I guess that's okay. One of the first things I do in my class is I have a bunch of like weird loose parts things in a bag and I like dump it on the floor and they all look at each other like I'm nuts. And then I say, "Well, let's play. Let's play with these parts." And
Hmm.
they don't know each other. I mean, maybe they've taken a class here and there, but
Yeah,
hybrid learning, they probably have taken 12 classes together, but not in the same room.
totally. Yeah.
And so they're sitting on the floor and they're playing, and it's like silent and awkward. And for the first time, a student, she like turned to her peers and she turned to me and she's like, never in my years of being a college student could I have imagined playing on the floor with little bits of wood and string and rubber bands. And that just totally broke the ice. And everyone started laughing and giggling and
Yeah.
just talking about the absurdity of what is happening. And you can create lots of different icebreakers, but one of the best ways to do that is to put people in a position where it's not scary, but it can be a little bit awkward, a little bit
Uh-huh.
outside that comfort zone, right? And that's where play kind of can eke its way through, and people find the things that they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as people feel safe, then they can feel like there's an opportunity to be risky in
Mm-hmm.
saying things or trying things or communicating with their neighbor, right? So I think a lot of people have misconceptions about who college age people are and what they do
Mm-hmm.
and what they're able to do. And a lot of our young people, they're not as tech savvy as we think they are.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to watch TikTok, and a lot of them don't even make TikTok videos, right?
Yeah.
But their play is really defined by their own early childhood experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I love talking about those students with, because they're much more closer to their childhood than you and I are,
Right.
but they still say the same things that we would have
Mm-hmm.
said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jumping on their bike, riding down the country roads,
Mm-hmm.
or going to the convenience store down the road, playing with their friends, finding a lost kitten, trying to,
Yeah.
all of those things still helps us to know that the students aren't that far from that
Mm-hmm.
childhood, but they're already thinking about the ways that that play should look different,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know how or why, or if that's good, bad, or right or wrong. I try to kind of keep it a little bit gray, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And that's so it's so interesting to me too, when you talked about that kind of like linear view of what play is, and I feel like a lot of times when we talk to other adults about um play for ourselves, there's always this like awkwardness of, okay, well, you want me to play, but in my mind, I'm thinking of play as one thing, right? I'm thinking of play as, okay, we need to have blocks or action
Mhm.
figures or any of these types of things. And so really being able to kind of dissect that and understand that like play can mean so many different things for so many different people, right? And it's just that awkwardness I feel like is so interesting. And years ago, I went to a program and did a little workshop, and part of
Mm.
what I do is like, okay, in the middle of the day, yeah, we'll have lunch, but also there's an hour that I set aside for y'all to just play, right? And so we have this whole conversation about this is what it's for, this is, all of that. But once we get into that, it's so interesting to see how people respond to that. It's so interesting to see how um, quick they're done with it, or they feel like, well, we did this right, or just to kind of see how their minds work when you're like, okay, I want you to spend the next hour playing,
Mhm.
and just seeing kind of how they navigate that as adults is always really interesting to me, when so much of the stuff that we do can be considered our play, right? Like you were
Mhm.
saying, like this is my
Mhm.
play, right? Being able
Mhm.
to talk to other people about it, being
Mhm.
able, and so I always find that kind of awkwardness and that kind of one-sided view of what play is really really interesting, and also really eye-opening to me, where
Mhm.
it's like there's so much that we feel like as adults that now it's like, or even, I mean, I feel like it even, when we were like teenagers and things, right? We've outgrown those things, right?
Mhm.
We can't do those things anymore. Or my husband will always tell me all the time he loves watching cartoons, and like older cartoons, Tom and Jerry, things like that. And so he'll always say to me like, "Is it embarrassing for you when I watch these or when I get excited for them?" And I'm like, "What do you no? What? No." He's like, "Well, they're for kids." And I'm like, "No." Like if you're having like, so breaking that whole thing down is always just really interesting for me to kind
Mhm.
of think about, especially, in my work, it's play is a lot focused on children, and so being able to have that different viewpoint of it is always really interesting to me.
And I think we we don't give people the space enough to feel that awkwardness,
Mm,
and we just kind of want to excuse me, move past that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the students are on the floor playing with the odds and ends and bits and pieces, like I intentionally stretch it longer
Mm.
than even it's comfortable. Like they think I'm gonna end it after 5 minutes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then it's 10 minutes, and then it's 15 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, well let's take a look, let's pause, let's see what you all are making. And
Mm-hmm.
we kind of have a discussion. I said, think about where we were 10 minutes ago when you had only done this for 5 minutes, right? Like you all were still like really weirded out. And then 10 minutes, you got
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more settled. Like, what if we had all day to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all would be talking about each other's, roommates and figuring out where everybody grew up, and you'd figure out like all these different connections, right? So you have to kind of sit in that awkwardness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as adults, we don't like to do that, right? So
Yeah.
and the adults, right? Like we run the children's programming,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we don't want to be uncomfortable. So we want them to play the way that we think they should be playing
Mm-hmm.
because we have an idea of what that play is supposed to look like because that's how we played when those children when we were those children's ages, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so unpacking that takes a lifetime, but also as we've talked about, like sitting in that and observing
Mm-hmm.
is playful, right?
Yes,
Like
yes.
Parton's 5 stages of play, observer, onlooker, play is what I try to tell my students that
Mm-hmm.
they can do when they are working at their childcare facilities, right? Like watching is is play,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all watch the TikToks, right? That's
Yeah.
playful, right? You are
Yes.
watching other people play, or the video gaming thing where they watch people play video games.
Oh, the streaming thing.
Yes,
What's Twitch or something? It's
Twitch.
called. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I have no idea about any of that.
But it is. It's all onlooker,
Mm-hmm.
feeling the feelings that people are feeling while you're watching movies, right? All of that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk to the adults and help them realize that this can actually, yes, I know it's your job and I know that you're getting paid for this. Like this is all good work, but like
Yeah.
if there's a way that you can reframe that in your
Mm-hmm.
brain and
Mm-hmm.
make that playful, that can
Mm-hmm.
also help too. Because I know that the childcare worker's job is tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is tremendous, and the weight that people feel, they have to go back home too,
Yeah.
and they have to care for their own families.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that they can find their own playful outlet too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and find ways to sit in that awkwardness and
Yeah.
be goofy with people, right?
Yes, yes. I'm interested to know kind of what the students' reactions are as you kind of have those first conversations with them,
Yeah.
and then like how their thought process shifts as they go throughout the course and they
Hmm.
start to kind of unpack some of those things or think differently. Um, I'm curious just kind of what you've seen as like,
Hmm.
any kind of overarching theme or idea that you notice as you kind of help them navigate through that.
So it's 5 weeks. It's very short. It's very intense. Um, as you've written about, reflection is key
Mm-hmm.
to all of this. So they do a lot of daily reflections, weekly reflections, papers, in-class activities, all of that stuff. And so I can see it shifting a little bit. And I can also see like the dichotomy that they're pushing up against
Mm-hmm.
that makes it so that they don't, well, yeah, but kids can't play all the time. Well,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah, they can. They're like, but at my daycare, you can like see the light
Yeah.
bulb
Yeah.
changing colors or whatever metaphor, right? Like they're like
Mm-hmm.
seeing things in a different way. They're like, but we do calendar time. Why are we
Mm-hmm.
doing calendar time? We have them line up for like 3 minutes
Yeah,
before they
yeah,
go through.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder, you can see they're pushing against those um uh, perhaps outdated
Yeah,
practices and
yeah.
way where we're controlling those kiddos. And it takes, and I know that 5 weeks is not enough. I know
Mm-hmm.
like you said, they're just kind of scratching the surface, but they themselves have changed their own play perspective of their own play,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that has been helpful as they're young adults
Yeah.
trying to figure out their, I don't like to say balance work life, like juggling, right?
Uh-huh.
They're trying to figure out all the ways in which they are uh, roommates and romantic partners and
Uh-huh.
work three different jobs and try to also have a summer, right? And
Mm-hmm.
all of those roles sort of conflicting with each other doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make it for a very playful summer when they're also taking this class on play, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
um, last summer, this was like a really interesting situation. So last summer, I had a great class. Every year is a great class. Anyone's listening, all my classes are great. But last summer it was great. We were clicking, we were vibing, and I don't know, I was talking about a thing, and I was on my soapbox, and
Mm-hmm.
I looked out at the class, and it was vacant eyes. It was vacant eyes, and I don't remember what I was talking about, but I got a hitch in my throat, and I started crying in front of these college age people. And I just like I was wiping my tears
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
I'm like getting verklempt and I'm trying to pull myself together. And they all just like shook out of themselves. And I was like, I'm trying to talk, and I'm like, I can't talk. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to talk about something that's really important, and I feel like y'all are checked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we're done with class for the day. Y'all just go. And they
Mm-hmm.
all just kind of like looked at and like gathered their things and like left. And I like go back to my administrative assistant and I'm like, I don't know what came over me. I just, it was all the stress, it was all the things just taking its
Mm-hmm.
toll, right? And I don't know if I might have, I think I emailed them and I just kind of like did my own like, boy, I guess Dr. Von Bing didn't get enough sleep. And I was kind of playing it off and
Uh-huh.
it was awkward, right? But I owned it, right? So the next day I'm walking down to the classroom and I see that the lights are off and I'm like, where are they? What's going on? They didn't even show up for class. And I walk in and they're like, surprise! And they brought me donuts and a
Oh.
card that said how much they appreciated me. And like, I wasn't, I wasn't, it was so I didn't know what to say. Even
Yeah,
today,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm still a little bit shook from it just because it helped me remember that we are all human and they got to
Mm-hmm.
see their professor be human
Mm-hmm.
and we got to find a way to come from that and also continue to like have really deep conversations about play. And um that was a really vulnerable moment and they showed up for me and I showed up for
Mm-hmm.
them and it really made our conversations that much more meaningful afterwards
Yeah.
too. So
I love that.
um yeah, that
I
was
love that. I love that. And I love that, like, I don't know. I mean, I know this isn't specifically what we're talking about, but I love that kind of like breaking down of those barriers that we so often have in this type of relationship, right? No matter what age
mm,
the students are, right? We have that sort of barrier, right? Where I'm the adult, quote
hmm
unquote, I'm the teacher, so I'm supposed to be a certain way, and you're supposed to only see me in this certain way so that you know that I know what I'm doing or you any of these things, right? And again, right, that reflection of like, well, that's what the teachers were like when I was a kid,
hmm
right? I never saw a teacher be real
yeah.
or vulnerable, right? And so I love those moments of being able to kind of break those barriers down and letting that connection happen between us and the children or and the students, right? Because it creates such a more meaningful kind of bond. And so I just I really I really love that. And I feel like, yeah, in that moment, I feel like we may feel, oh God, why did I do that?
Oh, yeah.
Now they're gonna
Yeah.
like now they're gonna whatever make fun of me, or they're going to think that I don't know, or they're going to think that
Yeah.
I'm weak, or they're going to think
Hmm.
whatever it is that
Hmm.
we've kind of built up from our own experiences, right? And so being able to kind of see the actual reaction, I think is just really great and really eye-opening. And so
Hmm.
I love that. I love anything that has to do with kind of breaking down that kind of hi- hierarchy view of education, right? Where
Hmm.
like the
Hmm.
teacher is somehow like way up here, right? And the students are way down here. And so being able to kind of break that down, I really love. But also I love how you were kind of just talking about that idea of like this is like a lifelong process of changing our viewpoint on what play is, and even as you're talking
Hmm.
about the students saying like, oh well they can't play all day, or well we why do we do this, and starting to kind of unpack those things, right? And so I think for a lot of us who are older, who have worked for longer in the field, like it is a struggle for, I mean, for me still sometimes
Hmm.
it's like I see myself still doing though some of those things that have kind
Hmm.
of been ingrained, right? And I'm like, wait, what? Like, no, this isn't what we're doing, right? So
Yeah.
it is this kind of um never ending type of journey, I feel like, of really understanding what play is, really understanding the importance of play, and not just knowing it and understanding it, but actually putting it into practice, right? Because it's one
Hmm.
thing for me to be like, yeah, I really think that the children should have unlimited amounts of play, and I really think that this is
Hmm.
important. But if what I'm doing in the classroom isn't that, then
Absolutely.
there's still that
Hmm.
work to
Hmm.
do, you know?
And even as a college professor, when I'm not teaching a class specifically about play, I do try to infuse playfulness into
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing because if I don't believe in play, I'm doing things the way that, again, standing up at the front of the room, I'm the authoritarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
no
Mm-hmm.
one's gonna buy in, right? Like no one's gonna they're not gonna take that next level of reflection
Mm-hmm.
if they're not seeing me also, walk that line.
Yeah.
So I found I found myself, and even before I was a parent, I would tell lots of different stories about my nieces and nephews and like my own experiences with families, and I'm a big discloser, right? Like I like to like share those experiences,
Mm-hmm.
um, because we can learn a lot from each other,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes that situation in the classroom, hopefully, is my intention to be more playful
Mm-hmm.
and to create a place of safety, right? So if we don't feel safe, we're not going to learn, and we certainly aren't going to play,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So my students know that's kind of like my shtick, but they also hopefully will remember the things that we're talking about in
Yeah,
class, and
yeah,
will
yeah.
carry that with them into their careers and their roles in life. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I kind of want to talk a little bit too about this idea of what play looks like typically for like older children as they go through school, and kind of where there is, a need for more of this playfulness. Because even just me
Hmm.
thinking back to like my childhood and my adolescence, right? Like
Hmm.
the time for play become shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter as we
Hmm.
move on
Hmm.
to where there is no time for that, and it's just work,
Hmm.
work, 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 school, 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 school. And so I'm interested to kind of hear your viewpoint on what that looks like now,
Yeah.
and kind of what shifts we need to make, and why
Yeah.
it's important to continue to have time for play and play throughout all of these years.
Yeah, and that's a dissertation, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole um chunk of information to take. But as I was parenting my kiddos, they went to a play-based childcare center,
Mm-hmm.
and when they started kindergarten, that was the first awakening to
Mm.
understanding what it isn't,
Mm-hmm.
where their play is squeezed into and what frame of time it's squeezed into, and how it's not viewed as like a learning mechanism, is that it's a reward, and that
Mm-hmm.
reward can
Mm-hmm.
be taken away, right? So we're talking about recess,
Yep.
or even just free time, right? So
Yeah.
during that schooling, recess is really the only time in the day that kiddos have a chance to choose their own groups and be with
Mm-hmm.
their people and use their outside voices
Yep.
and um, be physically active and also use their imagination in creative ways that, that our teacher's saying dot dot not a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all those things that and they get, a very short window of time to do that. So, I think so I live in Minnesota, and 2 years ago I was able to sit on and testify within our state House of Representatives and Senate on a bill to make it so that teachers cannot enforce a punishment by removing recess, right? So
Mm-hmm.
recess cannot be
Mm-hmm.
removed for a behavioral or academic issue in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
which came through, and it's phenomenal. In fact, the legislature actually tried to like take that down this last year, and they failed. So it is still being instated and enacted.
Yeah. That's
We don't
amazing.
have a Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, and I was just a lowly little testifier. If you, I'll share a video with you. But one of the founder of this sort of effort,
Yeah.
her son is autistic, and he was one of the testifiers,
Mm.
and his name was Sam.
Oh, ha.
He testified and about his experiences and having recess being taken away from him.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really moving stuff. And then I had to follow him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
in his testimony really shines a light. And now he's in middle school, and as those kiddos get older, their opportunities and their time, right at the time in middle
Mm-hmm.
school when we want them to be practicing autonomy and
Mm-hmm.
independence and decision making and empathy, we've whittled down their time to
Mm-hmm.
about 12 minutes for
Mm.
them to have that break time outside,
Mm-hmm.
all within like a 20-minute span of recess and lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So, and surprisingly, it looks different in high school. They actually, depending on the schools, my high schooler, he actually has a whole period for reset,
Mm.
lunch, right? So he can
Yeah.
go off campus or whatever. But we also know, confounding with all of these things are also the high pressure to play in sports, which
Mm-hmm.
takes away from that playtime that
Yes.
where
Yes.
kids could be bored.
Yes. Yes. And
And we
that's
know boredom
so,
is brilliant.
oh, yes, be bored. But
Yeah.
that's so interesting because as you're talking, I'm thinking back, and it's like, yeah, that was, I mean, I haven't been in elementary school for many, many years, but that I'm pretty sure that's probably the same thing in a lot of places, and that's how it was
Hmm.
for me, right? Where it's like if if you misbehaved or did anything that was out of exactly what you were supposed to do, that was the first thing to go. Was, well,
Hmm.
now you have to sit inside while everyone else is outside and, bang erasers or whatever it was that they were having you do. And it's like it's so wild to think about in a different way because I feel
Hmm.
like so often that's been what it is that everyone just kind of accepts this as like, well, you should have listened and you could have went to play, right? But as we kind of start to like shift our way of thinking, it's just so wild to me to think back to just my own experiences and be like,
Absolutely.
wow, like
Hmm.
it's there's just so much of that, right? And it's the shame that comes behind all of those things, right? The embarrassment, all of that stuff, right? Because even with taking away the recess, right? You're the only kid that's inside, and everyone that's outside playing knows that you can't play dodgeball
Hmm.
or whatever we're playing
Hmm.
because you're in trouble and you're
Yep.
inside. And so
Hmm.
then it's so interesting that the little amounts of time that children have to be autonomous and to
Hmm.
be independent, we're taking that away,
Hmm.
but then we're pushing children into adulthood where we have to be autonomous and we have to be independent, but
Hmm.
we've had no chance
Practice.
to do. It's
Yeah.
just it's
Yeah.
so wild to me how these things don't connect.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, and as an early childhood practitioner, early childhood is birth through age 8, which is third grade,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And when I tell my students that, again, their little brains go, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's that's third grade." Yes. Yep, that's third grade. And they have the right to play,
Mm-hmm.
but that time gets so squeezed in because of all the other pressures that schools and societies have on these young people to perform academically, socially.
Mm-hmm.
But we know if we don't let them have a chance to practice these things,
Mm-hmm.
they aren't going to be able to perform these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I was thinking, I've been thinking a lot about like 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we say five, it was a pandemic, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and kiddos, their time in which they spent in a classroom has was utterly shifted, right? So kiddos who were in kindergarten during that period of time, or whatever grade they were in, there not only did we see like academic losses, but more in addition and on top of like was the social and
Yeah,
emotional
totally.
skills
Mm-hmm.
that really did not have a chance to flourish in a way that maybe kiddos in other stages of the timeline,
Mm-hmm.
our timeline in life and world had. So it sounds like doom and gloom here, and I'm not really a doom and gloom kind of person, because I do believe that there are teachers out there who squeeze playtime into
Mm-hmm.
everything that they do, and that
Mm-hmm.
there are people who are advocates and fierce proponents of play. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like doom and gloom, but and I just try to you and we just keep trying to say the things, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And we keep trying
yeah.
to educate that next generation of people. Um, it should be said that the students who I work with are not elementary education students.
Mm.
These are students who are not licensed, not going into pre-licensure programs. They are
Mm.
going to work in non-licensed
Yeah,
entities, right? So
yeah.
I would love my elementary
Mm-hmm.
ed students to be able to take my class, but their classes are very prescribed,
Mm-hmm.
and there isn't a lot of wiggle room either. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm like not like a Debbie Downer, but I'm also like a realist,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I think, I think it's that idea of just continuing to talk about it, continuing to share that with others. And a lot of times I feel like we see so much about play based, we see all these things and we feel like, well, if I'm not in a space that believes in that, what can I do or how
Mm,
can I do those things, right? And so I found like you were saying, like there's teachers and we could be those people even in spaces
hmm.
that don't value and respect play. We can still be putting these things into the children. We could still be, having these ideas, making play as much as possible, no matter what situation that we're in.
Hmm.
'Cause yeah, I think like I mean, even in childcare, the some of the programs that I've been to and I'm like, "Oh, when do y'all go outside?" And they're like, "Oh, I think there's like 20 minutes here, but
Uh,
only if only if it's 77 degrees and sunny outside, right? And then if it's not, then we can't do and
mhm.
it's like, oh my gosh. And then then we have all these people coming to us saying like, well, I don't understand why the children are behaving this way, or I don't
So
understand
weird.
why this, and I don't. And it's like, for me, I think in my head, like, seems pretty obvious to me where the misstep is, right? But
Hmm.
again, it's just that idea of talking about it more because so many people are kind of in that mindset, right? And so being
Hmm.
able to say like, you know what? All the things that have been being done
Hmm.
might not be the best thing, And it's so interesting to me too when I just look at the world in general and the adults that are around in the world now and there's so many of us who are stressed and anxious and depressed and all of these things on top of everything, this kind of collective trauma that I feel like all of us who live in this country are going through. And it's always interesting to me to think like if we were able to shift our mindset about what play is, if we were able to give ourselves permission to
Hmm.
play, to
Hmm.
have a more playful attitude, to think differently about the things that we maybe feel like are for kids or
Hmm.
not for us, right? What sort of change could we have in ourselves, in our own mental health, in just our relationships with those around us? And so I feel like it's just that's become something that's been on my mind too lately of
Hmm.
like how can I share these ideas of play with other adults who maybe don't even work with kids, right?
Totally.
This idea of going going back into that playful mindset
Uh-huh.
that we left behind so long ago
Hmm.
and what that could do for us now as adults just for ourselves.
Hmm. One of the things that I did that was a really scary thing was do that TED Talk or TEDx talk
Yeah,
that I did.
yeah.
And I talked about risky play and I talked about all the ways in which it's beneficial for kids. And that was super scary, rewarding. I did it. I got off the stage. I'm like, holy cow. And I'm like, I guess I'm just gonna like go live my life now and get some lunch. So was getting some lunch and people kept coming up to me and telling me about their childhood play experiences, right? Like, oh, when I was a kid, we would go on the farm and we'd jump from the top
Hmm.
place in the into the hay bales, and someone else is like, I played in the neighborhood all the time, and we would take our bikes and we would be gone for hours on day. Like
Hmm.
people want to talk about their play
Yeah. Yeah.
experiences, right? Um, it's only when we say, okay, do you let your kids do
Yeah. Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yep.
Are you okay if a bunch
Hmm.
of kids come around on their bikes and ride by your house a couple times? Are you okay? Like,
Yeah.
if you did it, then you need to be okay
Yes.
with children existing in this world. And
Yes.
children existing in this world might be loud and it
Yep.
might not look the way you think it's gonna look. And you have to figure out, are you okay with that? And if you're not, like, what's wrong?
Yes.
But kids
No,
have a
that's
right to exist.
yes, and that's so true, and I find that so often, especially whenever I talk about things like risky play or weapon play or any of those things. And it's always such a big part of the conversation of let's talk about how you played. Let's talk
Absolutely.
about how we played. Because when
Hmm.
I was a kid, that's how I played, right? We
Hmm.
were out all the time. We were shooting at each other. We were
Hmm.
sorted, all of that kind of stuff. We were
Hmm.
doing all that stuff. We were jumping into the creek. We were all of those things, right? And not only were we doing them, but when you ask people what their favorite memories are of being children or of
Hmm.
playing, 90% of the time, it's going to be something along those lines.
Yep.
And so it's always just an eye-opening thing I feel like for people when you put it to them like that and you're like, "Yeah, what was your favorite thing to do when you played?" And it's always
Hmm.
something that was risky or always
Yep.
something that was outside of that, right? And so I just always find that so interesting to be like, "Okay, cool. So, you
Hmm.
love that. You're now 30, 40 years gone away from that time and you're
Hmm.
still thinking of that, right? And so how
Yep.
important can those times be for children now
Hmm.
of all ages, really?
Hmm. I find that the people who are most open to play are grandparents who have
Hmm.
worked and played with their young grandchildren. And I mean, not all of them, like everything depends, right? But the people who I've chatted with who know what I do like to tell me about the things that they do with
Yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
kids. And I think that there's been a lot of opportunities for older adults to really expand on their own play as well, right? So we've seen pickleball become more popular
Yeah,
than tennis,
yeah,
and
yeah,
we've
yeah.
seen more activities and opportunities for folks of a certain age to be able to get together and
Hmm.
do creative, inventive things. And we're exploring that idea of what it means to get older in different ways, right? So um the Golden Girls, right?
Hmm.
The famous TV show from the 80s. Those women were in their 50s.
Yes, yes, yes.
So they were in their golden years, right? But like our ideas of who we think older people are
Hmm.
is very, I don't know, different. It's just like putting that into a different context can
Hmm.
help us understand that like we still have a lot of life to live,
Yeah.
and it's got to be playful, right? We got to
Hmm.
find ways to connect with each other.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people all the time too, because so often it'll be like, okay, yeah, like I was saying, like, okay, we're all gonna play now, right? And a lot of times it's these blank stares of like, what do we what do we do? And I'm like, what do you want to do?
What do you
What's what's fun for you? What's something that you're doing where you're content, where you're not thinking about something else, where you're just immersed, whatever it is. It doesn't
Mm,
have to be something specific. It doesn't have to be a toy that you're playing with, or it doesn't have to be what you think of as
hmm
being that, right? So I'll say things like, well, for me, like cooking and baking, I love doing those things. That's
hmm
my play, right? Finding new recipes, trying new things out. Those things, that's my play. That's where
hmm
I feel like myself. That's where I feel happy. That's where I'm not worried about whatever else is going on.
hmm
And also, I'm learning something at the same time, right? It's all these things. And so when you kind of break that down, so it's like,
hmm
it's up to you what you do. It's up to you what your play looks like, right? But it's having this mindset of being open to being playful and being open to having experiences like that and changing the way that we think about things that are playful,
hmm
right? Like I was talking about how my husband, right? Changing that mindset of like feeling embarrassed for doing things that are playful at a
hmm
certain age, right? I think
hmm
I think is so important. And once we start doing that, your life becomes more playful and it does really do wonders for your mental health, right? And there's so many of us who struggle with those types of things and trying to
Totally.
find things that make us feel better when
Totally.
it's like it's been there.
Yeah.
It's been there this whole time.
And I think to your point, I think we've seen some research to sort of reflect that social isolation is one of the things that's one of the most detrimental effects on individuals and has different, negative health effects. So once we isolate ourselves so much because we
Mm-hmm.
don't think that either play is a luxury, play is for other people, and or life is really hard and I can't find ways to be playful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or find
Mm-hmm.
ways to be with people in a way that I feel playful.
Mm-hmm.
So that social isolation is something that hopefully we can combat just by bringing people together,
Mm-hmm.
parks and neighborhood gatherings and art
Yes.
festivals and ways that we can celebrate being together and really uniting, hopefully,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and people are more willing to unite around children, right? Like it's for
Yes.
the kids, let's do it, right?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
we get to benefit from it, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
like, it's like the trickle down effect, right? If the kids are playing, we get to like vicariously enjoy that
Yeah.
by watching them, and oh, I guess I enjoyed it too.
Yes. 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 I love that. Um, this has been a great conversation. I'm so glad that we were able to connect like this. And if there was one thing out of our whole conversation that you want people to take from this, the most important thing that you think, or just the thing that you really want people to leave this
Mhm.
conversation, what would it be?
Um, We have a children's museum in Mankato, and we had a chance to have like a little brick on like the pavement
Mm-hmm.
going through. So I
Mm-hmm.
got to pick a quote, and it was Louis Armstrong, "Play is life. What we play is life." And I totally agree. Like that's what we need. Play is life, and when we give ourselves permission to play, it can have that benefits for everybody, right? So. Play is not frivolous. It's really for everyone.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. Thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
on and for chatting with me. I had a great time. And thank you all for listening and for watching this episode of Honoring Childhood, the podcast. And I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hi. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Honoring Childhood, the podcast. Make sure that you like and subscribe and leave me a comment down below to let me know what you thought about this episode. Make sure that you're also following the podcast wherever you may be listening. Also, be sure to check out my books and follow me over on Instagram at Honoring Childhood.